All right, hey everyone, we're back.
Hey,
Um, I guess it's just us two tonight. So
yeah,
we're the how would you say it? We're the original people, and I guess we're the at the end of the day we're the last ones left,
apparently.
apparently. Okay, so today we have two things. We want to go over mainly go over the MVP and what we might need to do to make that happen. Maybe figure out some to-dos, talk about it a bit. What do we really need? What do what could be uh, what could be done, and maybe some things that we can do to move that forward. So, and then also we there was a really good comment on the community page. We've got a lot of support recently. There are a lot of questions and a lot of new people coming in. So hopefully we get to see you all at our public hangout on Wednesdays. That's kind of when we can talk to we like to talk to the general public, and people can voice their questions and try to figure out what Neureal is all about. So hopefully we'll see more people there. But we just wanted to answer one question on the comments on our Google Plus community page. A person was there talking about open source, and it's a valid question. People have a lot of concerns about, how do you have an open source system and then provide something so that people are, they're not making proprietary things with it. So a lot of people seem to have a concern over that. Um, so we were just talking about it a bit, and I guess there was a couple things that we thought of. This question actually came up from the Numenta people. Matthew uh, voiced his concern as well. With him, it seemed as to be some sort of a legal thing, where the idea is that you don't want corporations, if you do open source something, you don't want corporations to slap use it for money or whatever. I guess that was his concern. But anyway, so Jordan, do you have any thoughts on it really quick?
Well, basically, the question is, yeah. So how do we get people to not do it? And the first question I come back with is, do we want to force people not to do it proprietarily, right?
Yeah.
I mean, what's so bad about me developing a proprietary artificial intelligence algorithm? Does that mean that I can take over something or be way better than everybody else? Probably not. So, but even if it did, you know, what's so terrible about me wanting to keep it to myself? I mean, somebody's going to figure it out eventually anyway. I don't have the uh, power of the state to sue other people on the Neureal network for developing what I think I've, um, what would you say, patented and got a state mandated monopoly on. So it's just an environment where you can build stuff. You don't have to share it. You don't have to keep it secret. But if you're gonna, like, if I build something and I'm gonna think, oh, this is gonna be way better than everybody else, well, that's great. But everybody else is working together. So I
So
don't
what you're
know.
saying is the chances of you actually developing an algorithm that is way better than a large group of people who are working together with an open source project is actually pretty slim.
Yeah. I mean, if I'm thinking about competing with them, that is. Yeah.
So we all live in that world today, and that's a world that we exist in. The real question I have is, does Neureal want to take it on itself to force people in some way with their protocol to to make force them into making their algorithms public?
Right. The bottom line is Neureal's just not in that business of forcing them to do so.
Yeah, and I agree with that. One of the big ethos of Bitcoin itself, and one of probably the biggest thing that I like about it is that it's completely and 100% opt-in. It's 100% more than fiat currencies, like way more. So if you don't want to be a part of the Bitcoin network, you don't have to be. Nobody's forcing you to do it. Um, it's completely and 100% opt-in. So when you download that client, you're deciding to be a part of it, and because you make that decision, then you are then now invested into it, and it becomes a real part of you. And so, you know, Bitcoin is not in the business of forcing people to open source things. Um, you know, it it doesn't force them to. It just offers it up as an open source project. It says, here you go. You know, if you like it, great.
Yeah, it's voluntary.
It's complete voluntary. That was the word I was trying to. Opt-in is not quite as cool as voluntary. Yeah.
Yeah. And it couldn't force you to do stuff if it wanted to. It might be able, you could build a DAC that gave incentives for stuff, but I don't
Yeah.
know.
Yeah. So that really is where the question ends up for me. Is where can we give people an incentive? Where can there be an incentive for them to open source their stuff and work on it? I think it's an intrinsic, from what we were just talking about, Jordan, and what you were saying. I think that I think it's an intrinsic aspect of not only a marketplace, but of the nature of AI, in that it's going to benefit from having access to large amounts of data. And where are you going to get that data? People have to coordinate their efforts in order for that to be available to any algorithm.
Yeah. Yeah, and also, if you're writing a computer program, or how about this? If you're getting in a car to drive around, you don't necessarily have to have the car be open source in order to use it and enjoy it, you
Yeah.
know? So you can still connect up and to the network and communicate with other nodes and do what you got to do, and they can get benefit from you even if your stuff is proprietary, um, because they can still get your predictions or get the
Hmm.
service that you offer. So even if you're open source, they can do that too because you're the one providing the computer power for it and everything.
Yeah. So there's real costs in running the hardware, and the dynamics of all that is going to be pretty interesting to watch as it unfolds. You can gain a lot of insight by looking at the Bitcoin network itself, um, because that grew and unfolded in a way that Neureal may be very similar to. So in the Bitcoin network, if I went out and wrote a proprietary mining algorithm, okay, that did some funky things. Like maybe it went and looked for the best mining um, the best mining uh, you know whatever they are, the collectives.
Oh, okay.
The pools, the mining pools.
Right.
So it went out and looked for the best mining pools constantly and switched between them, kind of like an arbitrage, or maybe it looked for the best coins to mine, and people are doing that right now. And so, so those kinds of things build up, and the benefits are there for people. But they end up, there's people that end up providing those free, the mining algorithms for free. So we're definitely going the open source route. Everything we develop is going to be, at least for the product, we're going to do some things open source. Most of the successful things we see in the marketplace, as far as big data platforms and all that, are definitely open source. Hadoop is an example. Um, those kinds of things are just the way it works. So, you know, forcing people to go to be open source when when it may benefit them to be closed, and it may benefit the whole network to be closed. If they're working on it in secret, they're really not out there like spamming the GitHub. I don't know. There's probably a lot of crap on GitHub. Well, there is a lot of crap on GitHub. Not probably.
Yeah. I mean, you could look at this from a philosophical standpoint and just be like, do we want to force people to do what we think is the right thing? You
Yeah,
know, maybe we want to put incentives in, but anything that gets too arbitrary, I mean, it's just, I don't know, it's scary. You don't want to go down that road too far.
yeah, that's a little bit tricky for me as well.
Yeah.
And the normal Bitcoin ethos is that more of the anarchistic, you know, um, and I think DAX in general.
Yeah. I agree.
Anyway, if people can come up with some really good reasons um,
I don't have my thing on. Sorry.
other than like political kind of reasons. Hey, Jordan.
Hey, I had that closed.
Yeah, I was like, man, what am I
It's just
talking
you
about here? Are you
talking
sure?
to a
Are you
black
sure you're
screen.
not an AI?
Exactly.
I guess you still could be.
Yeah. Well, I probably am. Yeah. I run the algorithms, so.
That's right. All right. So you talked enough about that.
Hmm.
All right. So let's talk about the MVP. All right. So where does this come from, um, Jordan?
Why don't you start on that one? I'm actually gonna go look at the code and get
The
some
Trello.
tabs open here.
You're going to Trello.
Yeah, Trello and the Google Docs and stuff.
Oh, okay. Do you want to share that on your? You want to put that on your screen or something?
Yeah, let's see.
And then we can talk about it, and you can kind of go those places, or is that what you want to do it?
Let's see.
No, that's okay. It'd be nice for people to see that on there. I could do it. Do you want me to do it?
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay. So I'll share it.
Just cleaning up my screen here.
Oops.
Oh, hi.
All right. So we got Trello.
I should have had Trello open. I usually do for our meetings to like keep notes and stuff. I'm talking to myself. Oh, let me invite him.
Oh, hey everyone. Sorry about that. I accidentally closed the tab there. All right.
Hey,
Hey,
what?
oops.
I lost you.
Yeah, I accidentally closed the tab there. I got a little too excited.
Okay.
All right, so getting back to it. Are other people coming in then? They're not?
I don't think so.
Okay. All right, so back to it here. All right, so let's go to the board and we want to pull up the code as well. You're at the board too, right, Jordan?
Yeah, but I'm on the meetings board.
Okay.
I can go to any of them, but I
Yeah,
thought
you
I'd.
can kind of type the things we're talking about. There's particular ones though that we want to do for the to-dos or whatever.
Yeah, I'm gonna write this down for the to-dos.
All right, so here's the GitHub. Okay, so um, I guess an overview would be good of what I'll kind of say what I think I want to do, and
For the
then
minimal viable product.
yeah, and
Okay.
then you can kind of tell me what you think and stuff
hmm
like that. So I was hoping Brian would be here, so that's okay. All right, so the idea is that okay, so what I want to do basically is take what we've got
Okay.
and what we've actually got and make it work well, so it's useful. Um, so there's a couple things that we put in there. Basically, the minimum like story or whatever that I want that I'm thinking would be awesome, and would really get us to a level would be that you open up the download the client, open it up, start mining, get some coins somehow. I'm not start mining, get some coins somehow, and then you start predicting. But the thing is that you're using an algorithm that we have included that actually can do well at predicting particular stock. I'm not stock prices, Bitcoin or cryptocurrency prices. So um, so it could be a public good kind of thing too. So we could use the this current system, and we could have we could set up our. I mean, we could use what we've already done. I mean, what I'm doing is predicting the Bitcoin price to USD using data um, from Bitstamp. There's a Bitstamp? No. Uh, anyway, yeah, maybe Bitstamp. Um, and and having the predictions show up there so that you can uh, so that you can trade on it. So like without even having a bot trade, it could give indicators. It could say, hey, we think that you should buy or sell here. But if it's a public indicators, then people can do whatever they want, with it. And
Sure.
I'm thinking maybe that's like our initial thing. If they're not even trading on them, it may just be checking out our client to say, hey, these guys are really predicting the good stuff. They're actually
hmm
predicting the price here. So I think that has a viable, useful output as well. Because if it does start predicting well, then you can trade off of that and make some money. And I think that kind of fits into um, the whole Bitcoin ethos or community, uh, you know, um, the way people think in the Bitcoin world. So
So
yeah,
part of that is okay, answering the question of okay, what do we want it to do as kind of its coming out moment, to say, here I am, um, look at me. So you're saying we ought to use that opportunity for, I mean, what else? The Bitcoin price, right? Or
yeah,
in USD or in.
y- yeah. Well, we could do it with. I mean, we could have it so that we could hard code that in. I mean, that would actually be useful for a lot of people.
Yeah.
It would be useful for me
Yeah.
personally, and I could make some money with that, So, um, if we could just, so okay, so if I mean,
Well, okay, so I guess the question I really have is, do we want it to do something that is only for people interested in Bitcoin and cryptocurrencies, or do we want it to be generally applicable to anyone?
I think generally applicable to anyone, but that doesn't mean that we need to make it like super easy to use. I think it needs to be, you know, it needs to be useful, but it doesn't need to be particularly user friendly out the gate.
Okay.
Um, Usually that takes a lot of work, and so we don't need to worry about that right out of the gate. So
Okay.
I'm not gonna, and like we were talking about before, I don't know if we recorded that, but we're thinking of doing like a pre-crowd sale. It's not a release of the coin, and it's still on testnet, you
Yeah.
know, but it's not a real crowd sale either. It's
Right.
just a mini crowd sale, like not a real one. We
Yeah.
wouldn't be promoting it or anything. We just do like a little, not private, but just because there probably won't be that many people interested. And
Yeah.
so we just would say, hey, this is not real coin. We're just going to do this purely to prove that this system can predict the Bitcoin price well.
Right.
That's
Right.
the goal of it.
Okay.
And it doesn't matter if it's secure. It doesn't matter if somebody can come hack it. It gives us something that we can say, hey, we are doing well. Come hack it. Come try to break it. So that we can move it forward in those directions, and then have something that people can actually use with real money and stuff like that. So, um, we know enough people that I think that have enough extra GPU or CPU computing power laying around that they would love it. I mean, even some people that posted just the last couple of days on the Neureal community group. We're
Yeah.
talking we're talking like that.
Okay. Okay, so you're thinking of basically what we have now, but make it um, not necessarily easy to use, but definitely usable, and point it at, even if it's a hard coding, point it at the Bitcoin price.
Mhm.
Um, is that everything that I was supposed to gather from what you were saying?
Yeah, and I think we need to put along those lines. I think we need to actually have in there a really good high performance um,
Algorithm?
yeah algorithm
Okay.
for predicting.
Okay. As the default thing, yeah.
Yeah,
Okay.
I mean, what do you think about that? I mean, I think that's key because really that's the thing we're bringing into the mix here. Otherwise, it's just a silly um, altcoin.
Yeah, exactly. Um, yes, I think that's all right. When you said minimal viable product, I immediately think, okay, what are the main systems in the Neureal protocol and platform, really? And I said, well, I've made this diagram a while ago. We actually just made it together one night, and uh, and so when I think of
Uh,
minimal viable product, I think we're going to make the minimal viable system for each one of these main things and make
yeah,
sure they work together, and that's good. So as far as the blockchain goes, my understanding is that's basically there. I mean, we're taking from other blockchains and other projects like Coin, uh, so that's good to go almost, is my understanding.
yeah. All of this stuff's kind of good to go almost.
Yeah,
The only thing that's well, yeah, all it is because it is a working prototype. So it's taking it to the next step. So what do we need to do, particularly to take it to that next step of what we just described,
right.
where people can? I think one of the main things is getting rid of the tappy. So I think we talked about here. These are the to-dos that we've got in there, but what can we add particularly into this mix here? I think the main things are. We need to get rid of the tappy. We need to make sure that we're pulling the data uh, from the data source in a more efficient way. Right now, it's spamming the spamming the blockchain with tappies, which is really silly.
Yeah.
So we've talked about that. We've architected that
Hmm.
out in the previous architecture, and I think what we came to was basically that we grab, each client grabs the data from the Oracle and just you know puts it stores it itself in its own like mempool or whatever, and doesn't actually put it on the blockchain. And it's not until they make the block that they add that in, right? So
Hmm.
you don't need to transfer it between people and stuff like that. So um, I'm pretty sure that was what we were talking about. It may be a little more detail, but something needs to be done there. Also, the current PCC may need a few little
Oh,
tweaks.
yes. That would definitely need something.
So we were in there when we were really deep in that code. I realized I don't remember exactly what it was. It's on a different thing here, but when we were in that code, we realized that there was a little bit of something missing from it. So I think, we just need to go in there and figure out what that is and put something in there that's going to work for our MVP.
Okay.
So that on the App Engine, that's probably about it. Uh, so the client, I think we have everything we need in the client. You know, we have a we have a graph thing in there. We've got, we're pulling the MPEs. Oh, we do need to set up the PAPIs somehow so that you can send in the PAPIs better with an automatic thing or something. We need to actually get that implemented so that there's some sort of expenditure of PAPI's ability with like yeah, right here. I say it right here. Add start and stop to PAPI sponsorship transaction types. So let me put that at the top here. So that was I don't know what Brian was doing there, but okay. So we don't really need the marketplace for this, do we?
No, not for the minimal viable.
Okay.
But if there was a way, no, yeah, for minimal viable, I don't think we really need much for that.
Okay.
It's just to show, I don't know, is a minimal viable like just to show what you can do, or is it actually a product that people can use?
Well, people will be able to use it. I'm going to use it.
Right.
I'm going to use it to predict the Bitcoin price, and
Yeah.
hopefully that's a public thing, right? We'll have it be a public deal, and I'll get some of the. I mean, we can get the coin for free basically now. So you just have some coin. You put your coin age towards this one data source that we have, which is one. So it doesn't really matter what you're doing on the Pappy. I think that we should be able to like at least start and stop it though. I want to do that so that people can see that functionality. I mean, it's not huge, totally. So,
Okay.
uh, okay. So for the agents, I think this is one of the most important parts and the place we should really concentrate on. So we have separate from client. So that's one thing I think we need to do is make that API so that we can then, you put whatever algorithm we want in there, whether it's H2O, whether it's, whatever it is.
Yeah.
Um, we
Uh,
want to,
an AI, a statistical thing, whatever.
right. So we want to make that API, and then I think we should pick an algorithm to use to include with it, so that people can download it and just run it
Yeah.
on whatever they have. So it'd be nice if it was your GPU, but I mean we're really trying to predict the price here. So
If
what
we're if
yeah,
we're gonna do Numenta, I think this is gonna be a huge thing. So, but if we want it to be useful, it's got to be, you know,
powerful.
yeah, because the beauty of Numenta is that you can connect it up with lots and lots of different other miners
Hmm.
and get information, you know, from everywhere and really integrate that into a good understanding of what's happening.
And we keep talking about that, but people aren't trying that really. I mean, they are a little few here and there that I see out there in the marketplace, but a
Well,
lot of
what I'm
yeah,
saying is, since this is the minimal viable, and we're not going to have hundreds of computers doing this or thousands, um, maybe the Numenta is not the way to go because its real strength wouldn't shine in such a small environment.
I get what you're saying. I,
Um, but for the main event, I do think Numenta is a really important aspect to that.
well, if we're all competing, so if I run an algorithm and we're all competing, for the coin or whatever, that's not going to really give us a huge, um, you know, I mean, you're only as good as the best predictor in that case, right?
Right.
And so we're not really trying out that like, that whole architecture. And to me, it seems like proving that, doing something that just kind of is like, whoa, people start using this, just using it,
Yeah,
like
just to
it
compete, you
doesn't even
mean?
work right, and they still use it.
Yeah. So you're kind of on the same lines as I am then, where at this minimal viable stage, we're just going to be mostly just competing with each other and not really collaborating as much. And
Yeah,
then
it might
as
be
it
easier to.
grows, it'll
Yeah,
collaborate. Okay. That's what
yeah,
I envision. Yeah.
but I don't think it's terribly terrible to implement the Numenta. If there's a way that we can compile it down to an executable, and
Okay.
it's just got the RPC code in there. Um, I don't think there's a reason why we shouldn't.
Okay.
Because people are going to have various different hardware platforms, and it may give people kind of an idea of how that competition is going to happen.
Okay. All right.
Who's going to compete with each other. Although
Yeah.
it's more of an idea thing, it's not really as useful as my point. So a useful thing would be like a super awesome, me and everybody else that downloads it is actually contributing to the prediction to get it like right on, right? I mean, that
Yeah.
would be like, oh my gosh, that's totally useful.
Yeah, that's the end goal, but that's not the goal
Well,
right now.
well, it could be, is my point. So it could be that it's like super useful, you know. I mean, how useful is me running, Numenta on my laptop to try to predict the price of, all I'm getting is the ability to predict, from someone who decides to throw all their CPUs at it,
Right.
or something at their little mining farm, and then they provide it, to the network, and everybody gets to see it. That's not the same as like, we all add in our processing power to. So the real question is how much harder is that, right, to do? And
That is, I think, the hardest part at this point.
well, I would suggest that maybe that's not true,
Oh.
and maybe it's just one of those like, people. It's a conceptual thing that people can have a hard time with because they don't. Where in reality, all you have to do is just offer up your output, just like the guys in the Mensa said, at our other one of our hangouts. Um, just like they said, the input of one or the output of one algorithm can be the input of another.
Yeah.
And and if I if there's a mechanism that I can share my information with you as another miner, we could kind of manually set it up that way. Where I'm like your whole idea that you were talking about before, we could actually try it out. We could just say, hey, you get the data from the stock the gold price. Maybe Bitcoin has some sort of causation with the gold price. It's possible, or some sort of Twitter feed or something like that. And then people kind of have that freedom we can get the Numenta, have it crunch numbers from the gold price, just point it at that, and then you send your prediction off to me, and we don't worry about like any
Payments or
yeah
anything like that.
payments or anything like that, and then we see what it can do.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, yeah, so
Programming.
if we do go with a Numenta algorithm to start with, I guess you're saying that it might turn out to actually, we can begin to test these theories that technically aren't really tested yet.
Hmm.
And but we would have to implement a very basic version of the marketplace to actually connect up and send that data over and whatever.
Well, we might be able to do it manually, just in the case of like you just type in the IP. That
Yeah, that's true.
you just connect, like you send your data to this person and get their IP, or something, or
Yeah, but I mean that could be coded in, right? So that would be like the most basic version of a marketplace you could have.
yeah, exactly.
So yeah,
Yeah,
okay.
yeah, you're right.
Um, because the headache that I'm worried about is we're gonna have to figure out uh, how to connect up the miners automatically. I think that it will be the biggest headache as far as um, the miner algorithm and stuff.
Uh-huh.
Uh,
You think we need some AI to help us do that?
what's that?
You think we need some AI algorithms to help us do that?
Yeah, they'll definitely have to rely on AI algorithms, but like the brain has those regions that Numenta is trying to simulate, and those regions connect up a lot of the times based on proximity. So we don't really have that with the World Wide Web, with everybody,
Mm.
because you can connect up to anybody regardless of how close you are to them. It doesn't take a whole lot more work.
Yeah.
Um, so that kind of guidance isn't there to inform the algorithm. So we're really going to have to look at that eventually. And I know we've talked about that before, but we'll have to figure that out. The auto mine portion, yeah, like you have
Yep.
there on the page.
Yeah. Yep. So that's not just auto mine. It's more like auto mine, and find um,
Well,
find
yeah,
data.
automatically finding neighbors and pruning neighbors and everything. That would
Yeah.
be kind of like a subset of auto mining.
Yeah.
That's just one thing it has to learn how to do in order to auto mine
Yeah.
effectively. So, but we don't have to worry about that for the minimal viable, do we? Because,
No, we can just manually do it.
yeah, we'll just manually do it for that.
What's some
That'll
other
be
things? Find providers. Um, we can
prune.
do prune.
And that's how the brain does it. I mean, it connects up, and then when that's no longer useful to a different region or whatever, it
Hmm.
disconnects. And I mean, that's how the plasticity works.
Right.
So we need to have some kind of algorithm like that.
So um, manual connection.
Yeah, manual marketplace connection, minimal viable
Data
concept.
trade. Data trade. Like the
Okay. Yeah, exactly.
cap that. Okay.
Cool.
We can do that there. So I mean, we if we get to that point, separate from client, that's probably the best thing, the most important thing. Then we can start writing. People can just start writing code for that. That was one thing we talked about before that people mentioned um, that they wanted. So that's pretty important, I think. Probably the
Yeah.
first thing we need to do.
Yep. Now, what about the did we go over this? The GUI, the client part of it. Is
Yeah,
there anything that has to be done there to make it more usable as far as I know we talked about doing it in Unity or I mean, what do you think about all that?
Oh, for minimum viable, I don't think we need to do anything. I mean,
Okay.
people don't really, worry too much about the look and feel or the whatever.
Right, yeah.
I mean, it is a big project to do that, and I do definitely want to do it. But I don't think I don't think we really need to for this. It's a
But
lot
at
more.
this point, are we going to do like command line for it then?
What are you talking about? The actual miner part?
Yes, for
The
controlling the miner and connecting up or whatever.
Oh, we'll just have the RPC. We'll just run it command line. Yeah,
Okay.
like you mean the Numenta? I mean, if it's Numenta, it's going to be Numenta. It'll just be a custom, excuse me, version. You might when you say start miner, it will just in the background start that app up. So we'll
Yeah.
create the app with the RPC connection stuff. It'll just start it running.
I'm
It'll
just thinking of the user experience at this point.
Oh, they just hit start and stop
Okay.
just like they do now.
Okay.
It'll run in the background
I mean,
as a
but not just that, but like if you want to do things like we're talking about, like connect it up to other
oh
computers and put
we do that in the
input
GUI.
the
Yeah,
GUI. Okay.
yeah. We would just have it. I mean, we've got an RPC there. We can send commands back and forth. We need
Okay,
to
cool.
send the stop command, start command. So what we're doing is we're telling it. All we'll be telling it is go get your data here.
Yeah.
So we'll have a command that says get your data here. Should I add that on the board?
I don't know if it needs to be, if you think.
Yeah.
Maybe it's just obvious. I don't know.
Uh,
But
on the new pick, that's part.
yeah,
New pick
the
code
new
running
pick.
in RPC. We can add some things here.
I have downloaded the new pick code, and you know that I'm not a coder,
hmm
but I do have it running. I can run the demos and it works. And
Right.
I
Right.
finally got that working.
Cool.
Um, but it's pretty complicated, at least for me. I don't know. Maybe it's easy for other people. But we should probably go over it because then I can show you, and then you can kind of get an idea of how we're going to compile this into kind of a generic thing, a generic tool for the miners.
Yeah. So you okay? So there's basic things about it. Like you have to set up the data. There's the um, the what do they call it? Uh, they're the encoders. They take the
Hmm.
data and code it in a way that the network can use.
Yes, yes.
With the sparse whatever, and then um, so that has to be made and included in there. So that's going to grab data from in a particular format or whatever. So we don't have to actually do that. We can just provide it in the right format and make our own encoder. So we don't
Yes,
have to use their encoder.
right.
Uh, and then um, let me just finish what I'm doing here.
Sure. I'll be quiet for a second.
Well, no, it's part of this here too. So get data here. So you're telling it to get the data in the particular format. Um,
So
and
are we gonna have just like a for the minimal viable? Are we just gonna have like a full folder that has data? Like I don't know, the data folder, and then
definitely not.
no.
Definitely not, because we want it to work. So that's not going to help. We need live data, and we need and we need to be able to respond to things as they happen. So we can do history training, okay?
Right. That's what I was thinking of
Right.
though for
Yeah.
history.
But at the end of the day, you could probably include that already done, so
Okay.
that when they download it, you've already done the history or something.
Right. Okay. Cool.
That way, they don't have to do that. I mean, then you have them load from the point where you didn't. where you stop doing the history. So
So, well, I guess I just took it for granted. Then I assumed that the miner, if we're gonna make it with NewPick, we would include a way for it to just run through a whole bunch of downloaded history data automatically. Because if we're really going to test it, we'd want each of the miners or several of the miners to be on different data feeds to really see if this works the way we expect it to.
yeah.
So they'd all have uh, to have different history that it's been trained on
Oh
and
yeah.
looked at.
Yeah, you're right.
So I was thinking maybe they should do it themselves. If they have some kind of folder that it knows just where to look, and so it doesn't have to worry about, you know, paths
It's
or anything. I don't know.
yeah, but it depends on where it's coming from. So we could do that, but generally you put in an RPC or an API. So you'd want to have some sort of a, that is going to be hard for people to figure that out for each thing, right? We're going to have to figure
Right.
out some way for them to get the data. And so let's say they download a big file. So they get it from somewhere and it gets some huge file. Like when we started this out, we got all the history data uh, from Bitstamp or something.
Yeah.
And so we grabbed all the history data. It was a huge file, and we figured out how to get it in there.
Well,
So that
actually,
manually.
I
So you're right.
I understand that that can be a very hard thing to do because a little while ago I downloaded uh, 184 months of Euro USD data
Hmm.
per tick, and it was, I thought, oh, this is great, all this data, I'll just, it was
But
not easy. I had to reformat everything
yeah,
into a format that my program would work with. And then once I reformatted it, I was looking through it and I was like, oh my goodness, some of these months have it backwards, where the people that I downloaded it from had the bid as the ask and the ask as the bid. And then
yeah.
some of the other months were correct. And I was like, oh my goodness. So I had to, yeah, so I can understand how if we're leaving it up to the users to get their own history data, that could be really hard. But
So I think I might.
until,
Go ahead. Sorry.
uh, that is until there's oracles that offer that up and prune it and make it look good and everything. But yeah, in the meantime, if we can get that for them and then just have instructions on how to place it where the program wants to look for it, and then run this little command to have it run through it first before you do anything else. That shouldn't be too hard, right?
Well, there's a better solution. So that I can think of. I
Yeah.
think. The issue is that, and this is not what you ran into. What you're talking about is very prevalent in all the big data stuff, and people have an issue with that. It's really at the end of the day, that's what people end up doing. There's a lot of stuff like that, but there's a solution to that, and really what it is that yes, you can sit there and figure it out and clean it up and all this kind of stuff, right?
Hmm.
And you can do all that, and it ends up being better. But with time series stuff like this, the stuff that's always happening,
Hmm.
sometimes it doesn't matter. Sometimes like the things that you figure out and you notice, the neural network itself can notice.
Right. Yes.
Yes.
If it anticipates it, because I wrote this little script that would I didn't have to go through every month and say, okay, is this a good month or a bad month? Did they get it right? I just wrote the script that said, if the ask is lower than the bid, switch them and resave it.
Yeah. So at the end of the day, it tries to do the same thing you are. It has data, whether that data is good or not. It has data, and it's trying to use that data, whatever format it comes in, to find some sort of a correlation, some sort of a um, something to, not a correlation, a causation for particular future events. So the thing is that it can handle that. People don't think it can, but the main thing is that in these time series, you want online constant prediction. You
Yeah.
want it to be learning and growing all the time. You want it to be on there watching. So the thing is that all we have to do is we don't worry about the history stuff. We say if there's an interface to the history, right?
Hmm.
Um, then we see that or look at that exactly the same as if it was not timestamp. I mean, if it was timestamped. So
Okay,
the
I gotcha.
yeah. So the only difference.
So,
Oh, go
yeah,
ahead.
I mean, like you're thinking about like the end thing with like the oracles. Am I right?
I'm thinking of the way that the neural networks work and all that. So, whether you have oracles or not, I mean, if we have to format the data in a particular way, then we've got to do exactly what the oracle is going to do,
Right.
like the proxy oracle.
I'm
So,
with you.
yeah. So the
So
easier.
you're saying that when the miner's doing its thing and it decides to mine this new thing and it wants history data first, you just say to the Oracle, give me the history data, not necessarily in a downloaded file that it can run through, but you're
Right,
actually saying as if it was today, just give it
really
to me
fast.
fast. Yeah, just give it to
Yeah,
me fast. Just like you
exactly.
normally would, but double
Exactly.
time.
And
Okay.
it has timestamps in it.
Right.
So that actually would work. The same as it does if the timestamps are actually real time set up or spread out. So as an example, if your history data, every line of data in the history file is has a timestamp and it's 1 minute between each one, right? The entry has 1 minute, 1 minute, 1 minute,
Yeah,
like
yeah.
timestamp, right? You can read through that because it's a tick system.
Hmm.
You could read through that and start at the beginning and go through it as fast as you possibly can.
Yeah.
But
Yeah,
remember,
I understand that. I mean, you could do that if it was in a file as well.
yeah,
It'd be
in a
the same
file.
thing.
So it's just a matter of semantics, right?
Yeah.
How you format it and how you get it.
So are you thinking, I mean, I know Brian's thinking that for the minimal viable, we're going to need to have oracles that we run or that we, have or whatever. Do you think that would be needed then?
Which minimum viable? The crowd sale minimum viable or this pre one?
This pre one.
Oh, we really didn't talk about this pre one too much. He's saying, we need something that we can actually that's actually useful. That doesn't we don't need to worry about anything
Okay.
else,
Yeah.
right? So on along those lines, we just it's all about figuring out just what would be the easiest way to get there. So, where it's actually the more useful, the better. But, we start out with a minimum thing. So that's what I'm saying. So you first start out with separating the client, then you go into getting the new pick code. First, you get the start and the stop, right? And
Hmm.
then you get the get data here. So the
Yeah.
question is you put a URL for that. So if we don't that could be a URL where they're downloading a file. So how do we get Numenta to read a just whatever URL and be able to handle it, right? And that's a really good question. So
Yeah, we're gonna
if
have
we
to figure that
don't
out.
worry about it, right, and just take the data as it is, maybe we have some sort of a of a determiner that says, we find out we use those encoders, and I know there's a bunch of stuff out there, but you know, we're going to have to do it by hand, I think. Each
Yeah.
one of us are just going to have to say, this is the format that this data is coming in. We have to parse it this way or use this encoder. So maybe we actually have an option on the get data here of which encoder to use. And we can only use ones that have data in that format.
Right.
or something.
Yes.
And then all it does is it says, okay, now I don't know if that functionality is um, in Numenta already. We just need to take our time and look at that. If it is,
Well,
it should be pretty easy.
I the demo that I've got working
Uh-huh.
takes data from a CSV file, so that's nice.
Can you put a URL on it? Can you say go grab it from this URL?
Well, Grok or Numenta has products like Grok that can get data in a streaming fashion because, I mean, they actually have apps that get data in a streaming fashion.
Okay.
So, I mean, to their servers, and then they
Yeah.
update the app with, here's what our thing has found. So, I'm sure that's possible, and maybe even already coded in their code, but I haven't seen it. But I haven't seen much, so I don't
Yeah.
know.
Okay. So there's a possibility. Their end apps do that. So there is a possibility that may be in there.
Right.
Um, okay. Yeah, like I said, I haven't, I understand a lot of this stuff, but I haven't, I haven't spent the time to really get really into the particular details of all the platforms out there.
Yeah.
And so that's something we can spend some time with, and I think other people, who are getting involved, they may end up spending time doing that as well. Um, not just us. So anyway, so since our protocol is agnostic to that, even though we're providing the 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 minor code, the predictor code, um, making it easy for people to do all this stuff and pick different data sources and stuff, I think maybe is out of our scope. Um, manually doing it though, may be enough if we just like point them and just say, hey, if you want to customize this and get different data from a different source, go here and figure this out. You
Yeah.
know, point them to the right direction. They fork the project, the Numenta or whatever, and then they add their own customizations for the data source or whatever.
Well, I don't know. We'll have to look more into that. What I hear you saying is that um, it'll be easier for us to do something manually instead of just coding in a generic um, code. Am I following you right?
A generic what?
Um, like, okay. Let me put it this way. So we can make a Oracle server thing that is hard coded for the program to look at for this first one, maybe.
You're talking about the predictive side of it, um, or the gathering of the data to do the prediction. I mean,
Um,
the data source oracles thing for the prediction for the
yeah,
internal coding, or
the
the
well, yeah, just producing an Oracle like we would have on the end product. That's what
okay.
I'm
So
talking
those are just for those have nothing to do with the data coming in for the miners. That has
about.
nothing to do
Okay.
with it, right?
Well, they're getting the data from the Oracle, right?
Who is?
The miners.
They don't have to.
Well, that's true. Yeah, they don't have to. Yeah, you're right.
So, what were you wondering about?
Well, wouldn't wouldn't the most efficient way to do this is to make the program or behave like it would from the beginning, just in a very minimal state? Is what I hear from you is we're gonna to kind of manually create this to behave the way we want it to, but then we're gonna have to recreate everything um, as far
Oh,
as getting the data goes.
no, no,
When,
no. Remember, our protocol is not going to do anything to help that, except for the marketplace, right?
Right.
So the marketplace is going to be there for people to trade data, and all it's going to do is provide like the ability for them to do, for instance, offer up a data source, so for sale, so or for free, so you offer it up as a transaction. That way, everybody gets to look at that. What that includes as its metadata, and like we talked about in our last thing, what that includes as its metadata is the address to go to get the data,
Right.
and so that's the actual output of the other of the miner. Now, when I use that, it has nothing to do with the payout of of the coin, uh, which is the Oracle stuff, right?
Right.
That really doesn't have anything to do with it because it's
You're right.
agnostic where you get the data. So
Yeah.
it's just a convenience thing to use the
Okay.
blockchain to coordinate the trans the. So I could hard code it. Instead of me putting up putting up a new transaction on the blockchain. Now we could do that. I mean, that's actually minimum. That's not that hard to do at this point. We've already
Yeah.
got everything in there. It's very easy for me to add a new thing that says, oh, here's my address, and then we have a little button that they click that says, okay, I'm going to take my miner output, right? And instead of putting it in as an MPE, I'm going to put it in as I'm going to put up my address and have it available to people to go grab as input data.
Yes. Okay.
Their thing,
Yeah.
and so we could do that and make that transaction out on there, which is what we're going to be doing in the end. So the what I'm saying though is particularly that in with the Numenta code, okay, so there's going to be two people downloading this. There's going to be two types of people downloading the client. This MVP we're talking about,
Hmm.
this MVP. There's going to be two. There's going to be one. They just have hardware they want to throw it at. They don't want to deal with anything but hardware. They don't want to pick a different data source. They don't want to. I mean, they do maybe, but that's too complicated to have those guys do it. To just
Right.
make it easy for them to pick some extra data source.
Sure.
Maybe we put two different data sources in, that
Yeah.
they can pick or something, and we do that, but that's still adding some complexity. So, so what we do is um, we just have a default data source for those guys, right?
Right.
And but then we offer up the source code. Like we say, okay, this is the project here. This is what we've added. You can fork it if you know how. It's the second type of person who's going to come in. They're going to understand how to add a different data source. Okay, that's going to be me. I'm going to understand that, right? So,
I guess that was my question. Why do we want people to fork it instead of just programming it in there that they can change the data source? I guess that's what I really meant to ask.
okay, so it's difficult to put that in. That's what we were just going through. The whole thing we just went through made it obvious that to me that change making Numenta so you can have a random data source come in, right? You just put a URL, let's say. What if
Yeah.
there's a file there? What if there's a different a data, a constant data string? What if it's in JSON format? What if it's in this? What if it's in that? We're basically, like you said, we're forcing them to. We need somebody to write some code to manage that data. It's a
Right.
huge part of the whole thing.
Okay.
It's a big thing that people deal with all the time, right?
I see
And
what you're saying.
yeah, we went through all that. So that's why I'm saying that we need to let people who understand how to do that, who know how to do that, do it. Fork the code and add in the capabilities to pick different things. Now, if it's easy to pick particular formats and people can figure that out, we could put a little chooser in the GUI that chooses, oh, this we want this, you know, like in Numenta, you mentioned there's a CSV file, right?
Sure.
So maybe there's another format we can add in there, RPC, JSON RPC. So we let them choose: is your data source a JSON RPC or is it a CSV, right? And then we have programming that handles both those, and then they can choose one or the other, but it's up to them to pick the right address that has that actual data, or else
Well,
it's going to
this
fail on
this
them.
would this would be like a module, wouldn't it?
No, it's
Because
it's Numenta's code.
but well, every new data source or type would be like its own module. If I like the JSON or the Numenta CSV file, if I want,
Oh, are you saying it's in the? You're saying in the Numenta code, it's its own module?
no, I'm saying we wouldn't want to. Okay, so end product vision, and you have hundreds of algorithms and thousands of data formats. You wouldn't want to have to code that all of that into the client. You would want their sorry, you would want those to be like little modules you can get on the app store, the marketplace,
Yeah,
and that
okay.
you can plug in, right?
Yeah, we were talking about that before. So what that's very similar to the Oracle thing. I
Okay.
mean the proxy Oracle, not the Oracle, but the proxy Oracle. So
So
the
for the,
proxy Oracle,
for this prototype thing, we don't want to have to deal with any of that, so we're just going to hard code it in to say, look at this specific thing, and this is how you interpret it, and that's it. And then if somebody wants to fork it, they can do that, and they can look at some other data source, and if they know how to interpret it, and that.
yeah, I guess those are the two ways. So I mean, you have a point. Let me add that as a card. So the point you're making is that maybe we should make a couple modules and set up that thing.
Yeah, yeah,
But they really are like the minor code. I mean, they they end up being like the minor code.
yeah. They're
If
pretty complex.
they could actually be minors, they could be AI algorithms that are producing that.
Yeah,
I mean, it's the same thing. So you're basically making another module, which means you have to add the ability to choose which one you're going to do
right,
because you can't really use both, right?
right. I mean, maybe you could for some weird minor, but at this point, no, you could only use one.
Yeah. So where are we going to put that code? I mean, we have to put it currently in the unless we rewrite the we basically rewrite we're already putting in the RPC into Numenta. So if you rewrite Numenta to include more RPC commands that basically say, okay, go out to this to the thing and get the data that I use as my input data. Give me the address to use. So that's
Right,
the thing we were talking about with the get data here. So which encoder? So
exactly.
yeah, we need to know a little bit more about Numenta though before we can really decide how this should be structured.
You're
We,
right. But
we
but we do know at least that we want those two things to be modules. They could be bundled into one module, but we want them to be able to be modules eventually. And maybe just for the crowd sale prototype or project,
uh
um, maybe those are separate modules that just happen to come with the project, but technically they're not hard coded into it. Does that make sense?
Yeah, but it's just when you get at the end of the day, you're gonna have to figure out something that's easy to do. So
Yeah.
and gets you to what you want. Uh, so yeah, we could do that. I mean, that's a possibility. But in order to do that, that's what I'm saying. We would need to add in some sort of an option like the RPC commands to manage that. So
Yeah.
you're you're doing the transfer between things. So
Yeah.
you're saying, um, okay, there's two sides in just a conceptual big picture. There's two sides to a miner. There's the side where they're getting data in, and then there's a side where they're getting data or sending data out. So they're providing on the getting data in, they're a consumer or they're a client, and the getting data and sending data out, they're a server,
Yeah.
right? So that data out can be sending an MPE to the Bitcoin, I mean the Newcoin network. I mean the Neureal network. Sorry, I'm confusing all the terms. So the sending data can be one, either putting it up onto the Neureal network, or two, offering it up uh, to people on an RPC as a server on their IP, um, and sending a transaction onto the network that tells everybody where to go to get that data. So
Right.
there's two different options. If we're going to put both those in, then then you could run, like I could run the data massaging algorithm, and you could run the the actual neural network algorithm,
Yeah.
right? And that way we could work together on it.
Yeah.
And that's all we need, is that server, and then the consuming data is either two ways. Either you consume the data from a posted URL, okay, which somebody posts up on the network, that one I was talking about earlier, that they have a server,
Hmm.
or two, you go out and get it from another source that's somewhere else that's out on the internet. So if you have those two mechanisms in the code, then you can implement what you're saying. If we have the ability to run two of them at the same time, like two miners at the same time, like start just like, oh, I have this one miner, code here, and then I have this other miner code. I'm going to run both of them. I'm going to start, if whatever's in this folder, I start everyone in there, whatever it is, and I can download it and send it to my friend or something, and then put it in there, and it'll start it up,
Sure.
right? You could have actually two miners, and they're communicating or something,
Yeah.
or a server on one, and they're just local instead of being remote. So that's a possibility too. We could go that direction. That way it would kind of fit more into what we were trying to do before. So maybe that's when we do the manual data trade. Maybe that's what that's all about. So do
Yeah.
we need to write that in here somehow so we don't forget what we just talked about?
I think so.
That's huge.
How would you write that in?
I don't know. What should I write?
Okay.
So there's two types of.
You're acting as a server or a um, consumer.
So there's two types of a consumer. Oh yeah, server. I'll do consumer. So okay, so consumer, on the consumer side, you have two ways. You either get it from an actual, well, they're both very similar, except for one of them you're going to have to do something weird with. Like it's just not going to work. So, I mean, the two ways that you're just getting it from a URL, basically. Data
Hmm.
from a URL.
And that would be you're just pulling it when you want to pull it, right?
You,
I mean, it doesn't have a way to tell you, here's the data
what do you
in
mean?
real time, right? This is a pull mechanism. It's not a push notification thing.
It's data from a URL, yeah.
Okay.
You mean wait there and respond when there's new data. No, this would be pull, yeah.
Okay.
Poll, Poll, poll.
Pull.
Yeah, pull data from a URL. That's the right word.
Huh.
That's what it means by rather than respond to, uh, as an event or whatever. Okay, so on the server side, there's two ways. So you can either send an MPE, or you can offer data on URL, um, and link transact send offer. We haven't come up with names for those. Send offer transaction with metadata of metadata URL, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so that's basically it. So we'd have two kinds. I mean, there'd be two kinds of miners then. We'd have to have people be able to choose two pieces of code. So a folder with code in it, right?
Right.
So um,
Well, did you say with code in it or with data in it?
code. So it'd be this. I mean, like an exe or a whatever. EXEs, like a folder with miners in it, miner code, and it would run all of them, I guess, or whatever. So you could put whatever in there. Does that make any sense?
Yeah. Yeah, it does.
Um, so those would get run. They would just get started. So and then also uh, they run when the client starts, but also as an example, um, you'd have uh, you could have new pick or something that provides data to new pick, right? Or new pick or data formatter. What they call it? Encoder.
Mm-hmm.
That way, we can have it ship with like both of those, and then it's a set thing to get the data from like. So the data encoder would be, for instance, it would go grab the current price, right, and it would just constantly feed it that.
Right.
And so that could be the one that ships. So we'd have to put that code in there. So that code's not going to be in the client that grabs the data. It's going to be totally separate. So and then people can fork that code. So we'll have both those on there. Then people can fork that code and modify it and make new ones, make new data encoders, make new picks.
Right. I'd like to kind of make a diagram of what aspects of the project have to be like what we're talking about here, like modules and how they have to work or should work or does that make sense? Because I don't think we all kind of have the same vision of that yet, but I think that's really important before we get the final product.
Yeah, that's the thing about software is it's really hard to understand it before you actually start writing it. And a lot of
Yeah,
times it'll change, as you go because you can't remember or keep everything in your head.
I
So
know. That's why I like diagrams so much because I
yeah,
I can't keep anything in my head. I
right.
forget it
Well,
all.
and if you remember correctly, on all of our architecture meetings, I would go out and write some code, and then we would spend like lots and lots of time just trying to figure out what my code did,
Exactly.
how to describe it, and explain it.
Yeah.
So you guys understood.
Yeah.
So, so yeah,
And
definitely.
I do that with my own projects too. I'm like, okay, what is this? Yeah.
Yeah, what is it? What are we doing here exactly? How does this all fit together in a graphical, functional graph way? So yeah, that
Yeah. I mean, maybe we could make some flow charts or something. I don't know,
well,
but we'll
this
have to figure
yeah,
that out.
this gives me a good start. As far as like, because this makes a lot of sense. Like putting having this folder right now with the data encoder and the new pick, and if
Uh-huh.
they're both accessing the RPC, like
Yeah.
doing the same thing, right? Then it's fairly simple that I just need to make one RPC like or a couple RPC interfaces, that handle what they're doing. So that makes a lot of sense to me,
Yeah.
ar architecture wise. So anyway, it's a good start, and I can take a look at that and see what I can come up with. Or of course, anybody else out watching this can do that as well. It'd be awesome.
Yeah, it would.
So anybody wants to join in on this or have some ideas. Don't miss our next one. So, do you feel comfortable quitting now, or
I think so. I would really like to make that diagram. I don't know if we should do it tonight or some other time, but or maybe when Brian can be here too, and maybe Brock or someone. They would probably really help.
yeah, yep, that's true. Okay, well, so hi back again. I got it's getting dark in here. Be that good. Good
So
night.
yeah, I mean, I think we kind of finalized the vision for this minimal viable prototype kind of thing a lot better tonight than we
Yep,
had before.
definitely.
Um, I did want to ask really quick about the prediction closeness calculation.
Okay,
Do you remember what has to be improved or tweaked with that
I
as far
don't.
as just a prototype goes?
I don't. All I'd have to do is get in there in the code, though, and it'd be pretty obvious.
Okay, because I don't remember what had to change, but I remember there was a lot of talk that stuff had to change.
Yeah, I don't remember. That's a good
So,
thing. That's why we do these recorded hangouts, right?
exactly.
So we can go back through them and have
Exactly.
this be our memory.
Yeah.
And of course, the ultimate goal is to have the AI be our memory, and then we can just kick back and
And then you're done.
yeah,
Uh, I
yeah.
swear I wrote it down here. Maybe not. Okay. Well, sounds good then.
Oh,
Yeah, that
sweet.
sounds good. Block times. Yeah, I'll have to figure that out later.
So
Wednesday then?
yeah, that'll be the public. Hopefully, we'll get some new people in there, and it'll be probably pretty. We should definitely try to do it at 5:30 instead of this late. And then yeah, sorry about that. Anyway, yeah. So if you can come on Wednesday, come check us out. Public. We'll try to help people understand the basics that we've already figured out. This one tries to push the project forward, and the Wednesday one really kind of tries to bring other people up to speed. So that's kind of the thing. So, what about next time? What do you think we should talk about then next time, next Friday here? Do you want to talk about that particular PCC? I mean, I'd love to.
Yeah, and I would like to get Brian's and Brock's opinion on things and kind of shortly go over what we talked about and then
Okay,
kind of flesh it out in a more detail. And I'll try to make like maybe a diagram we can go over
that'd be awesome. Yeah,
or something that we can use to kind of visualize it.
yeah, that'd be awesome.
Cool.
Sweet. All
Sounds
right,
good.
sounds good. All right. Well, good night, everyone.
We'll see you.
See you, Jeremy.